Let's just say the quiet part out loud. Most people who say they've forgiven someone haven't actually let anything go. They've just stopped talking about it. They've decided they're done explaining themselves. They've gotten tired of feeling emotional about it. And over time, that tiredness started to look like peace, even though it wasn't. You can usually tell when forgiveness hasn't actually happened because it shows up indirectly. It shows up in how guarded someone is. It shows up in how quickly they assume attentions, or in how little room they leave for people to disappoint them. Because disappointment feels inevitable. And there's often a sentence attached to it, something along the lines of, I've learned my lesson, or I don't expect much anymore, or I'm just realistic now. And those sentences come off strong, but it's also uncovering something that never got resolved. None of this is judgment, it's an observation, and it's one that hit uncomfortably close to home for me. My name is Anne-Tso, and I started my coaching practice Salt and Light as a response to working in recruitment in corporate environments and seeing the same patterns over and over and over again, especially in women. Lack of talent was never the issue. Lack of skill was also rarely the issue. However, lack of confidence almost always was. I watched women overthink themselves out of opportunities, stay quiet when they should have spoken up, and internalize things that were never actually about them. That's what led me to start my podcast, the Soul Talks Club, which has since become a community and space where women come together to heal, grow, and thrive. I also write about these topics weekly on my Substack. But for now, let's talk about the illusion of having moved on. For a long time, forgiveness felt like something I was not good at. Whenever things hurt too much, I didn't necessarily react in the obvious ways. I didn't always overreact or be dramatic or explode. Sometimes I didn't even go back to rehash old conversations or demanded explanations. So from the outside, this looked like progress. But if you look inward, it's hard to admit that nothing had been released. Everything was still right here, because I remembered every moment very clearly, every disappointment, certain people who I permanently placed in categories in my mind, and once they had those tags, those were rarely removed. It felt like the responsible thing to do. It felt like growth, and it felt like self-protection. Another word for that is resentment, because it also meant that the past still had a place in my present. Distance was being maintained because it felt safer. Expectations were lowered out of preemptive defense. What I'm trying to say is that you can move on with your life, yet still be completely shaped by what you claim is already behind you. All of this became impossible to ignore when someone very close to me pointed it out one day, quite plainly, but nonetheless, the effect was the same.
Hey, Annie, I've noticed something about you. You're very resentful. And when I'm around you, I feel like I have a zero-strike policy.
This hit hard because it was accurate. And it forced me to see that my understanding of forgiveness still involved a lot of control. Control over proximity, control over vulnerability, control over how much access someone was allowed to have. And at that point, it became very clear that even though I wasn't actively holding grudges towards anyone, the weight of them was still there. And then there's the lived experience. The reality is that the lived version does not feel like closure. It feels like giving up something, yet getting nothing in return for it. Picture it like choosing not to keep replaying something, even when your mind wants to. It's like letting go of a story that once helped you make sense of what happened. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. But letting go is accepting that what happened mattered, it left a mark, but that it doesn't get to run the rest of your life. And that was the turning point for me. Forgiveness stopped being about other people and started to be about whether I was willing to stop letting old pain dictate new behavior. Forgiveness is for you. But this becomes especially difficult when the pain does not come from one singular event, but instead from patterns that started way back in your childhood. When it starts with your parents. When it's your parents, this isn't a clean story anymore. It's not oh, she acted shady towards me and now I'm gonna cut her off. This is when good moments become tangled up with disappointment. It's when intentions don't line up with impact. Things that were meant well, but still hurt. And as a child, none of that gets analyzed. It just gets absorbed. And consistency was part of your environment. You just learn to adjust. You learn to manage your expectations. You learn to read between the lines very early. You learn to not ask for too much because asking and then not receiving is worse than not asking at all. Those adaptations don't just disappear as you grow up. In a way, they get more sophisticated. In adulthood, these show up as caution. testing people. At some point in my 20s, God kept bringing up the same idea over and over and over again until it became impossible to ignore. And that idea was honor your parents. I understood I wasn't free. I was carrying a lot of unresolved disappointment, which kept me stuck in other areas of my life as well. The reality is, some relationships just will never look the way that we want them to. And that's a kind of grief that needs to be faced. Release, and I want to be very clear when I say this, depending on the circumstance, does not require reconciliation. As a matter of fact, the person you're releasing forgiveness to does not need to know that you're doing it. It's not always a two-way road. Which brings me to when it's someone you loved. Romantic relationships. These add another layer because heartbreak isn't always just about losing someone. It's also about letting go of the version that coexisted with them. It's this grief and realizing how much was given, how much was tolerated, and how long certain situations were explained away in the name of love, loyalty, or hope. What you can feel besides grief is also anger, but underneath it all is often disappointment with yourself. Why did you stay longer than you should have? Why did you believe in words instead of patterns? You thought more effort could compensate for the lack of reciprocity. I want to cut through all of this by saying, in this case, forgiveness means that belief that things would eventually make sense. Sometimes clarity just doesn't come. And understanding someone's wounds also doesn't mean that you have to tolerate them. When it's your friends, friendship breakups, drifting apart, less effort, fewer replies, shady side comments, this gradual realization that something just isn't the way it used to be, and that balance has been off for quite some time. People who needed support but couldn't offer it. Our dynamics where listening was very one-dimensional. What's interesting though is that oftentimes loyalty keeps you from seeing it as such. What forgiveness can look like in this case is accepting limitations without needing an explanation, or releasing expectations that were never going to get met. Here's the hardest part of forgiveness. So this is the part that comes last, and it's forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself means looking directly at all the moments where your intuition was ignored, where your boundaries were ignored. It means acknowledging that most of your decisions come from fear, attachment, hope, and still shape the outcome. And I'm not trying to minimize that. You were operating with the amount of information and the capacity that you had at the time. And giving yourself grace does not take away from the accountability. It doesn't lose its meaning when you apply grace to yourself. It's harder, but it's also necessary. If anything in this starts something up in you, I want you to sit with these questions. Who are you still waiting to apologize before you feel free? What would change if release didn't depend on their awareness? And where are you still holding yourself to a standard that doesn't leave room for growth? Forgiveness often doesn't appear as relief. It comes as a form of surrender. It's a decision you have to make to stop carrying something that has already destroyed enough. If this is something you're working on actively or you want to start working on, I offer one-on-one coaching and you can find the details to that below. See you next week.